Good morning, gentlemen. Wonderful time. I'm back in front of my horses painting, and the horses at the back, they are in an angry mood. And I'm going to talk to you about the battle in Ukraine. Why it's important? ये क्यों important है? Because there have been very important developments there. और सबसे बड़ी development ये हुई है that the Ukrainian army has mounted an assault in the northern part of Ukraine which borders Russia, that is called the Kursk region. This is on the border with Belarus, and the net result is, I think, they have taken about 1,000 square miles of Russian territory. There's a lot of territory which they have taken. So the war, gentlemen, is now in a very, very interesting stage. And very interesting stage indeed. Because now it means one thing, that the war will continue. Now you remember that once Hitler had ordered the Battle of the Bulge, one of the German colonels was asked, once he was captured, why did you attack in the Ardennes? And what was the plan? So he had only a one-line answer. He said, we want the war to continue. So what's going to happen here is the same thing. The war is going to continue. And the Russians have been taken by surprise. I think Putin and the Russian army would be very, very unhappy with what has happened. They should have been more astute, more alert. This area in the northern region was very poorly defended. There were, I think, raw recruits who were there, not the trained ones. The professional army was fighting in the Donetsk region in the eastern part of Ukraine, and they were gaining some territory there, and now obviously Putin thought that he won the war, that Ukraine is on its last legs. Well, it didn't work out that way, and now he's been faced with what is called the Hobson's choice. And he must be wondering what to do. He must be in a state of shock, but he's a strong man. He can get over it. But gentlemen, the war will continue. And now the Ukrainians are inside. They've captured some villages also, and the Russians have had to evacuate their pensioners and old people from these areas. And many of the Russian recruits who were facing the Ukrainians have either been killed or captured, taken POW, and Putin is going to have a tough time to explain to his people how come he lost this territory in the Kursk region and why there are mounting casualties of the Russian soldiers. And it'll have a very deleterious effect on the forces as well as the Russian people. And of course, America would be sitting happy, but Biden won't be too happy because these are the last days, like the last days of Pompey. I think he's going to go away, and Donald Trump will probably win and come. But there won't be any solace for the Russians. I don't think so. And Putin has made a statement that he's not enamored of any new president who may come to head the American nation. Well, gentlemen, as far as the war is concerned, I wish Ukraine had been not that much of a lackey of the Americans, because one thing is very clear: whatever the war continues, Ukraine is destroyed. See, this is in the American interest to continue the war, and the Americans had instigated this war. If you remember, 1992. There was a promise by Bill Clinton to Boris Yeltsin that he wouldn't expand NATO eastward. He did it. And then they had incorporated Ukraine. But Putin realized that this incorporation of Ukraine into NATO and the EU would be an essential crisis for Russia. And the Polish Prime Minister made a statement, the best thing is for the world is that Russia should break up into 4 or 5 countries. And that was the plan of the Americans. But Putin thwarted it, He came into the first attack in Kiev, which he botched it up badly, had to retreat, came back in force in the Donetsk region, and he was winning to a degree. I won't say he had won the battle, because I wish he had taken a look at how General Jacob carried out the operation, the planning of the invasion of East Pakistan, where a country as big as Ukraine was occupied within 15 days by the Indian army. But that meant meticulous planning. This was not done by the Russians, who walked into Kiev sector like you walk into a drawing room without any planning. They thought they'll just show their tanks and guns and everything will be over and there'll be a regime change. And in fact, at that time, Putin made a statement that the war is lost as far as Ukraine is concerned, and he advised the Ukrainian army to lay down arms. That's 2 years back. But it didn't happen that way. And later Putin claimed that it is NATO which has come on the side of Ukraine and that we are fighting NATO. I would like to ask Mr. Putin one question. Did he not know that NATO would intervene in Ukraine come what may? He should have been ready for it. I think he was ready, but not to the degree expected. And now he's been in power for 25 years. That's a long time. And he's a dictator, claims to be a Democrat. But 4 or 5 of the people, his opponents who opposed him have ceased to exist. I don't say Putin got them killed or something like that. I won't make such a statement. But definitely mysterious deaths that people who oppose Putin just vanish. Or they're killed, they die. Maybe an accident, what it may be. Maybe God's will, I don't know. But it's fishy, I'll say that much. And now he's really in trouble. He doesn't know what to do. He must be wondering what I'm going to do now. He's got to push the Ukrainians back. He can't have a ceasefire now also, because that means he's going to give up Russian territory to Ukraine in lieu of the territory he has taken in the Donetsk region. I don't think he's going to agree to it. There won't be a ceasefire now. That means the war continues. And Putin will have to bring in greater force to throw the Ukrainians out of the Russian territory. I think they'll be able to do it with superior firepower, but it's a bit of a mystery that the Russian army, fighting for 2 years with the most sophisticated weaponry, has not been able to beat the Ukrainians. And desperation could set in. You see, this is a very dangerous word, desperation. Hitler was desperate in the end, and at that time he had the atomic bomb when he used it over London. And the Americans, in their desperation, used the bomb against Japan. So I hope such a situation doesn't come up, but desperation is possible, and if the Russians can't throw out the Ukrainians, it's going to be a terrible thing. Anything is possible. I won't say the nuclear war, maybe not, but it could be an engineered explosion in one of the nuclear plants in Ukraine. It's going to be a terrible thing for the Ukrainian people. And as far as a good friend Zelensky is concerned, I don't think he's covered himself with glory. He's destroyed his people just to become a lackey of the Americans. That's all. He's a lackey, a yes man, a puppet, but he destroyed his people, where almost 25% of the population of Ukraine is moving around as refugees all over Europe. I don't think he's proud of it. He's proud? I think if he's proud, he must be a very stupid man. Well, gentlemen, the war is at an interesting stage. As I told you, John Mishmar, the American columnist, commentator, and theorist, has already said that this war was launched by the Americans basically to further their hegemony over Europe. So they haven't succeeded fully yet, because Russia has not been defeated, and despite all the sanctions, the Russians have been able to survive them, and their economy has been growing at a regular pace, and now they have come into the region of the developed countries. Their per capita income's gone up. But this defeat, or rather this incursion by the Ukrainians into the Kursk region, is a very, very nervy point. It's going to touch a raw nerve as far as Vladimir Putin is concerned. And now so many Russians, including the top industrialists the oligarchy, the men who control Russia's money, are calling for a halt to this senseless war. I think one of the topmost of them has said this war should be stopped. I wonder if he doesn't meet the fate of some of the other opponents of Vladimir Putin. But it means there's opposition to the war in Russia. Because the war has been going on for too long. I thought the maximum period when the war started that it would be over in 2 months. I expected the Russian army to act in a professional manner, number one. Number two, I expected them to use all their firepower and air power, bomb Ukraine to surrender. They didn't do that. They were talking of a limited military engagement, and the net result is what you have seen, what's happened now. Well, gentlemen, Russia has got allies only in Iran and North Korea and China. China is not really sending any soldiers or something to fight, though a lot of weaponry is coming from North Korea and Iran. Well, that's part of the game. Russia would like India to be on its side, but I think he won't be too happy with Mr. Modi trying for the Nobel Peace Prize by going to Kyiv. I don't know what the hell he's going to do there with this sort of fighting going on. I think it will be in his interest to stay at home and look after the Bangladesh crisis and face up to the Bengalis there who are killing the Hindus, give some statements. He's not doing that. Well, this war is to continue. We'll have to wait and see what happens. In the meanwhile, gentlemen, if you like my video, share it with your friends and come back for more. And don't forget to press the bell icon so that you get more of my videos. And lastly, do take care of yourself. Keep a track of what's ever happening around the world. And I'll give you my comments. This war, gentlemen, is going to continue, and more on that later. And goodbye.